Invasion force! Release us!
I got a shotgun.
Chris Redfield. Jill Valentine. Barry Burton. Rebecca Chambers. Albert Wesker. Resident Evil.
Hey, you okay?
Oh, some damn enchiladas. Oh.
You gonna be all right?
Oh.
Can you tell me where I can find a book on astronomy?
Don't you know the Dewey Decimal System?
Conan the Librarian.
I'm sorry. These books are a little overdue.
やめろ！お前らには無理だ！自分を守んのはねえ！
Oh, look at that over there!
What is it, darling?
I believe they're lesbians! Well, we're British, you see, and where we're from, lesbians don't exist.
Neither does toothpaste.
Or sunshine.
Or good food.
Or sobriety. Yeah.
You gotta get yourself a nice 250-pound dwarf, huh? Have a chin you can hang on to, huh? Huh?
We like to breathe the future. Promise broken bones. Promise broken bones. Promise broken
Wake the fuck up, samurai. We have a city to burn.
inside this cow.
Hello, everybody out there in YouTube land. This is your T-shirted historian. Ironcaster's out there in the audience. I don't know why he's not on. I think he's got a family thing or something going on this week. But hey, it's good to see you all. I've had a really interesting week. Kind of a sad one, really. We apparently lost comedian Gallagher, who I remember I grew up kind of watching on Showtime way back in the day. And him smashing watermelons. And we also lost Kevin Conroy. Same day. Jeez. It's like it's a rough week for entertainers this week.
We lost Kevin O'Neill as well.
Yeah, that's right. We did lose Kevin O'Neill. Yeah. From DC. Yeah. Wow. It's rough, man. I think we're all just getting old, dude. Gallagher was like 76. So... I didn't even realize he was that old.
Yep.
Yeah. But, hey, you know, the show must go on, I guess. We're still here. And Grim, I want you to show everybody what you're eating. Because, I love these. We haven't done any snack stuff in a long time. Look at that. Mini snowballs. What do those things taste like?
So, it's basically just normal Cadbury's milk chocolate, but it's got, like, miniature... Do you have Smarties in the States?
Yeah.
Yeah, miniature Smarties inside with a white shell. I don't really see the point, but yeah, they're okay.
Interesting. And what, Victor, you had like a bag of chips? What flavor?
Yeah.
They're just like Lay's.
It's just normal. And I have this. I have a jar of brown beans.
Brown beans? What, do you snack on those?
No, I'm just fucking around.
What kind of chips? Anything special?
No, just plain. Just
what's the brand?
Crisps.
Store brand.
Crisps.
Plus.
Yeah, that's a store brand. I live over a supermarket, like literally, it's literally like the floor beneath me. So I just walk downstairs and buy shit.
Oh, that must be nice, man.
Yeah.
God, I should do that.
Must be deadly when you're feeling snacky.
Oh yeah, definitely. I when I first moved here, like almost 10 years ago, I think I gained like 40 pounds. Like it was awful. I was just like eating like tubs of ice cream here by myself, just hanging out with my friends.
And apparently Squeaker needs some bangers, which I guess what it's like kind of a sausage or something.
It's just a generic term for sausages because cheap
Bangers
sausages used to explode. Yeah.
Calstaff. Hey, Calstaff. It's good to see you. That's how you determine if you won at life. If everyone you know is dead and you're the last one standing and you won. Well, I guess. I don't know. I don't feel that way most of the time. I miss my friends who are not with me anymore quite a bit. More so now than lately, and I guess it's the season.
Yeah, my best friend's older brother died today. He's the... Wow. I didn't think that was going to affect me, but he's the guy that actually taught me Dungeons and Dragons in the 1970s. And back in the old, before Blue Book, Red Book, back when we were playing in the old original TSR Dungeons and Dragons rules. And so today it kind of hit me home. I was telling Lady Thoth, I said, he was our dungeon master when we were kids. Like, I'm talking kids, like not even high school yet, and he would tell these weird stories, and then we'd play for 15, 20, 25 minutes, and we'd be dead, so we'd have to roll up new characters. It was classic Dungeons and Dragons. So shout out to Dale Cormier today, good maritimer from the east coast of Canada, and I'm thinking of you, bro.
Oh man, I have kind of an interesting story about my gaming this week also. But while we're talking about depression and sweets here, I got this. Nothing quite as sad as a Japanese candy that's associated with a film about children starving to death slowly in World War II Japan.
Yeah.
So
eat this and you won't starve.
Yeah.
If only they had that candy.
They did, and it still didn't save them.
Oh.
I didn't realize it was the week in Bleak this week.
It's the week in Bleak, yes. Yeah. Kind of. It feels that way a little bit. And speaking of deaths, I started running Hyperborea. Actually, I started it last week, but continued this week. And just using their random encounter stuff, the party is escorting a caravan through some snowy woods. And I'm like, okay, well, I got to generate an encounter. And so I generate, 21 berserkers, which, they're a type of wild man. They're not like literally like, frothing at the mouth, bound for Valhalla Viking types necessarily. But, they're like one hit dice, one hit die plus 3. So, you roll like a D8 and plus 3 hit points. And they could be kind of formidable. And apparently they were, because I rolled up like 20 of them plus a sub chief. And, I had them attack the party's caravan. And keep in mind, the party was scouting ahead, and they found traces of campfires and stuff, so they knew there was an ambush coming at some point. And I gave the party the benefit of initiative. I said, okay, well, you could see them coming out, but you were prepared for their ambush, so they didn't get any kind of surprise on you. You've got missile weapons and spells and range, and they don't. So I'll let you engage all of your missile weapons and range that you'd like, before they actually reach you to fight.
Yeah.
So, party took a couple of shots with bows, which were kind of largely ineffectual. I mean, they didn't do that much damage. The magician got off a sleep spell, and this is like Hyperborea old school sleep. So the sleep spell, he was asking me, he said, well, how many can I get? And I said, well, I don't figure all 20 of them are going to be clustered all up in one big giant group. So I figured it seemed fair to have like 2 groups of 10 on both sides of the road coming at you. So you can get like group A or group B. So he went, for group A. So I said, okay, well, there's 10 possible targets. Just roll a D10, see how many you can snag all at once. He rolled 9. So I said, okay, awesome. They don't get a save. 9 berserkers go to sleep right there. Bam. So that's like almost half of their numbers taken down. Caravan has 5 extra guard defenders along with the party. So I said, okay, well, the berserkers are going to break up to where they're going man to man. So they've got at least 5 berserkers are going to peel off to take on the NPCs, and that leaves 6 and a sub chief to deal with the party. Well, the sub chief was kind of standing back and not engaging yet. So party's dealing with 2 berserkers apiece, and things did not go well for the party. They weren't hitting hard enough, and they weren't hitting, well, period. So before all is said and done, one party member dies from a critical hit that, literally took him to -18. So it's kind of like, yeah, you're kind of like split in half. There's just nothing else to say for it. He did manage to kill one of them before he went down. Other 2 party members took enough damage to where they were reduced to like -2, -3 hit points apiece, which in Hyperborea is not a mortal wound, but it's like you're down for the count, but you can recover from it, especially if you have assistance. Well, since it was basically a TPK, it was only a 3-person party. I figured it's like, okay, well, the berserkers they're not necessarily here to slaughter everybody so much as they are to get supplies. So
it was only a 3-person TPK. Only.
Yeah. Yeah. So, they capture the remaining 2 surviving party members and take them back to their camp and, get them thrown into a slave tent to where they can get their wounds treated and stuff like that. And, the party is furious at me. The players are. They're like, it's like, well, you're throwing 20 guys against a, first level party. And I said, like, yeah, but your sleep spell knocked down 9 of them. That's pretty awesome.
They could have fled.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the berserkers would have probably gone after the caravan for the stuff.
Yeah. That's also what I figured.
I'm trying to imagine sleeping berserkers, though.
That's part of the 5e syndrome, I think, or the modern TTRPG syndrome. People think that if you get into a fight, you have to finish it. It's like, no, running away is a perfectly valid option if you're like, out of your league.
Yeah, Monty Python's The Holy Grail proved that.
Yeah, and that's what I figured too. I mean, and it's not like these guys are new to role playing. They're old school role players. They've been through all the old stuff, so they know how dangerous it used to be. And they have decent stats, so their characters are not like crippled in any way, shape, or form. It's just bad turn of the dice, and then for whatever reason they decided to stick it out and fight with the berserkers instead of run.
Well, imagine if they rolled well and they killed maybe two berserkers, and there's 4 berserkers left. You could have given the berserkers a morale check. It's like, well, half our dudes are sleeping. They're just killing the rest of us. We're gonna run away. It could have gone either way. But the players lost out in this case. Sorry.
Yeah, I didn't even get a chance to do a morale check. So honestly, I didn't look at the morale, what berserkers have for morale, but I imagine it's pretty steep.
Being captured is kind of an out from a TPK anyway, and the dead guy can introduce a new character as one of the other thralls or slaves or whatever. And they get to escape, which is always a good fun thing to do. So
yeah, I thought so too. I felt I was being pretty fair about it overall. I mean, but no, they were livid about it. I mean, the magician player actually told me point blank. He said, it should have been a TPK because I had 2 guys attacking me, and the second one should have commenced his attack also at the same time. I said it doesn't make any sense for them to have both hit you at exactly the same time. Because basically what he was saying was the second attack probably would have hit and driven him even further into negatives and killed his character, which I think he was secretly hoping for, but I was like, no, it doesn't make any sense. If you go down on the one hit, there's no reason for the other guy to commence his attack also. It's just... But, anyway, yeah, they were pretty livid about it, so...
Yeah, they'll get over it.
I think so. It's just... I hate it when stuff like this happens because it always kind of, makes me feel a little bit like, my GMing skills are not good. I mean, I actually had somebody on Twitter tell me, he's like, yeah, if you'd have done that to me, I'd have politely bowed out of your game because I think that's unfair. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe I was a little harsh, but, somebody suggested that they could have parlayed, and I'm kind of like, I don't necessarily think that parlaying would have been a thing. I mean, they're berserkers. I mean, maybe they would have listened if they'd have rolled a high enough charisma check or something, but...
Throw down your weapons, hand over your cargo, and submit to our bonds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
But...
Oh, hey, Greg, I didn't even notice you came in.
I noticed Greg there. Hi, Greg.
Yeah.
Hey, Greg.
Hello.
Can I ask a quick question of the panel since we're on D&D talk, and before we get on to something else? So,
sure.
The new Dragonlance supplement's coming out soon for Wizards of the Coast, and I've sworn off all 5th edition Wizards of the Coast stuff lately, but I am a fanatical Dragonlance fan from way back when, and I'm kind of eyeing this. I'm also eyeing the special edition one. I guess it's the steel version from... Why does it escape me all of a sudden? Beetle and Grimm's set up there. It's like $400 for the steel edition with all the supplements and the holy symbols and stuff. And I'm really having a hard time resisting buying it. Does anybody have any thoughts on this?
Why are you giving money to people who hate you?
I mean, if you want to pay to be disappointed.
Yeah, you saw the preview for it, right?
I did, yeah.
It doesn't look like it has much to do with Dragonlance at all, really.
Yeah, that's a lot of the problems. And so I just saw a Twitter post there a few minutes ago with the absolutely original version. Now, I own all the Dragonlance books from, including all the DL modules from the good old days. And I'm just thinking if the party wants to do some Dragonlance, I need to dust that stuff off and maybe do a 1st edition game. Because my players are all in their, let's just say, post 40s, post 50s kind of era, right? It's I've got 5 players in my group that are all from a long time ago. We're putting it politely, and they're all every once in a while, every about 6 months to a year, when we're going through this 5th edition drivel and we're playing that, they're like, I miss 1st edition. I miss 2nd edition. So I've been kind of thinking of just saying, instead of purchasing this for an outrageous amount of money, just dust out the old stuff and say, okay, everybody, we'll do a house rules. We'll just modify the rules to kind of fix the theme a little bit better than what was out in 1st and even 2nd edition, and go from there. That's kind of what I've been looking at lately, is running a Dragonlance game again. I love that. And I'm talking about the 3 original novels, the 1st edition, maybe even 2nd edition rules, and playing sometime in the War of the Lance. What do you think?
Yeah, that sounds way more fun than this stuff.
Yeah, right? And that's what the problem I've been having with all this stuff that's been coming out of Wizards of the Coast lately. It's just awful.
I mean, you're talking about this special edition, it sounds like there's a bunch of stuff in that you won't be able to get another time. So while you might not be necessarily so interested in the 5th edition source books, these other extras and collectibles, if you love Dragonlance, this is probably your opportunity to get those. And if they're resold, it'll probably be at some obscene price on eBay or something. I don't know how much. Do we know if any money from sales of this is going back to the
I would
authors?
assume they license it, right? I would assume they would license the book. But you've got the maps. So like Thorbridin, any of the great classic areas that were in the original books, they're writing maps. They have these really cool medallions that are the holy symbols of Paladine and Tachesis, and it's pretty sharp. And you know what, Grim, you just hit it right on the head. Exactly why I've been humming and hawing about this is the really cool little trinkets that come with it. I have the Ravenloft one, and it is it is a big box of really cool stuff from Ravenloft. And even if I don't run the 5th edition module from them, you still can go back to I own the 1st edition modules, and and it's a great set.
Oh.
You cut off. Are you still going?
No. Wizards of the Coast completely owns Dragonlance. Margaret Weiss and Teresa Hickman will not get a dime from this.
Okay.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah, they completely left them out of it, so yeah.
Yeah. And did you see the thing about copper and bronze dragons?
It's like there's all kinds of random shit that they're getting wrong. Like, I guarantee...
You're back.
Yeah, I'm back. I think my wireless broke up there for a minute. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Hear you good.
Oh, good.
Yes, I mean, if you've been into Dragonlance all this time and there's cool shit that's in the set, then it might be worth it to you. I'm not a huge Dragonlance fan, so for me it wouldn't be. But if they did something like that for Dark Sun, even though I knew that the 5th edition product would probably be shit, I would still be tempted if there was like a big faux leather map of Athas.
Oh, that would be cool.
That like it's been tattooed on something's skin or something, and if they had stuff with it that was cool, then I might be tempted, even though I would know that the 5th edition version would be rubbish.
Every box, every Dark Sun box special edition comes with a ravening cannibalistic halfling that you can.
Yeah. It comes with a box of tampons and a bottle of No More Tears shampoo.
Nice free short stack. Nice.
But yeah, to me, I look at it as if Amazon released a limited, amazing, like bookended Blu-ray collection in 4K of Rings of Power. It's like, as a lifelong Tolkien fan who's loved Tolkien my whole life, and it influences like everything that I do in the fantasy world. Love the Peter Jackson movies. Like, I have multiple editions of the books, including the 1st edition of the Silmarillion. Like, I'm in the same boat as you are for Tolkien. I love Dragonlance too. But if Amazon released that, I wouldn't be able to buy it. I'm sorry. I can't. I'm not even going to watch the show. I don't want to touch it.
Well, there's no comparison between Tolkien and Dragonlance. Let's just, I agree 100%. Tolkien is, Lord of the Rings is the greatest of all time. But it's funny because the group that I'm in, they're not really into doing a Lord of the Rings thing. It's more D&D, and I happen to love running Dragonlance. That's kind of where the theme is. I've gone, in my teenage years when I was running stuff. So now I have my own campaign world that has been in creation since the 70s. It's several binders worth of stuff. That's usually what I run. But I've just been kind of thinking about it.
Yep.
Well, I can understand. If you have some disposable cash and you really are into all the trinkets and things like that, and why not? Just, if you're going to enjoy it, then buy it.
With all the good. Sorry.
Oh, it's like we tell everybody: if you just because you like a property that we don't, doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't get it. Like if, for example, something we're going to talk about today, if somebody went out there and watched Wakanda Forever and they really, really enjoyed it, thought it was wonderful, thought it was a great film, Academy Award winning movie, that kind of stuff, then I'd be like, well, that's cool. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm sorry I can't share your enthusiasm and joy for it, 'cause I didn't I didn't think the same thing, but I'm glad you did, and I think that's really cool.
The problem with all the latest like Wizards of the Coast offerings is that they basically keep implying that they're releasing setting books, and then when you actually get the books, like it's basically just adventures, and there's like some very light like additions, like this is how you do like Spelljammer ships, and even that's like crap because it doesn't even have ship-to-ship combat. So it's all just like awful adventures where it's like, let's do a cooking contest, or like let's do some fishing, or like a pageantry, or like all this awfulness. So.
I think that is the intention with 5th edition these days is they no longer want to introduce long-term campaign settings. What they have kind of filtered the game down into is like individual short campaign runs or adventure runs that you do with a group, and then everything else that you do between adventure sessions is downtime. And they've been wanting to do that since 4th edition. And to some degree, 3rd edition.
Well, like the Spelljammer books, it was like 3 books, right? And I think they're like 60 pages or so each. Like Spelljammer should be like a 500-page book. Like it has so much shit you could do in that setting if you like really wanted to. But like no, it's just like some thin books. Like I can crank that out in like 2 weeks if I wanted to, probably.
Yeah.
Like.
They've been tending to give you like adventure paths that have a certain amount of campaign information in them, but not campaign settings.
Yeah.
And then adventures within that campaign. I mean, there must be a reason they're doing it. Adventures, it's common knowledge in the gaming industry that adventures normally are what sells the least. But if they're selling adventures with a thin veneer of campaign setting as well, that may draw in the normal adventure audience that does exist and the people who are hungry for setting information. So
I wonder it's also because they're mining their talent from like DM's Guild and stuff, and it's mostly just people that write like adventures and shit on there. It's not people that write like whole settings. So
talent's a strong word.
Yeah, well, you know what I mean.
Yeah, I've been seeing some rumbles that they're basically making books in order to fund the next book at this point.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true. I mean, but it doesn't look good for them right now.
No.
Well, I think Grim is right. Considering that what we've seen in recent history is there's very few settings that they put out. It's always settings that are a module that have a little bit of setting within the actual module itself. And I'm thinking that they think that is the most successful supplement to put out. But I'll be honest, I haven't bought a book from TSR, Wizards of the Coast in probably 2 years now. So it's obviously not successful with the veteran gamer, but it must be successful within the younger audience because that's who keeps buying it. And if they keep putting it out, it must be successful.
I don't think it's as successful as they pretend to be.
That's
Every time
possible.
I see a glimpse of like the actual sales number, they're like way down. So
Well, this is my feeling on it, and I don't know how true it is. I don't know if it's factual or if it's just the idea. But let's say I'm writing, or I put out a rule system, and I want to keep people coming back to playing it. The old thing is publish or die, and
yeah.
If I give you the core rule set, and then I give you a setting book that tells you exactly, what the world looks like, where everything is, and what's in where, and everything like that. Why would you buy a module? Because it's like there's no point in it. It's like now you are armed with everything that you need to be completely independent from everything else that I produce. The only other thing that might interest you that I will produce will be splat books with new classes and new races and things like that.
Yeah.
To be honest, as a GM, I prefer doing an organic module where I have a planned kind of scenario and let the players decide where we go based on you have your cliff notes that you have on the side, and you say, okay, this is where they could go if they go here, if they go here. Then you're not beholden to an actual published module that's so non-organic. And that's why I don't like buying published modules. I prefer just running my own scenario and letting the players determine where you go, because we all know, as experienced game masters, the players never go where you want them to. They always decide to do something out of left field. That's really where you have to consider. And you don't want to force them into a situation where they're going in a certain direction either, because then the players see that, the GM's trying to make us go this way. Well, we're really going to try hard not to go that way. So I'm not. That's why I'm not a fan of published modules. I like the theme ideas and I like the background. So when you have a background book, that's kind of cool, because in a lot of cases the players really want to go into a world that they're familiar with. Whether it's Tolkien, whether it's Forgotten Realms, whatever it is, they like being in the familiar. That's something that they've read. But maybe that's me talking from the 80s and 90s when we used to read back in the day, when we used to read novels and not go online and think, what's the next best thing? So maybe I'm a little bit jaded.
Yeah. Well, the last Wizards of the Coast major setting book that was actually a setting book, I think was probably Mythic Odysseys of Theros, which was based on a Magic the Gathering set. But like, to your point, players want something familiar, and that is a good book. I don't have a huge problem with that book. I actually own that book. It only came out in like 2020, and that's a full setting guide, but it's for a setting that only Magic the Gathering players really know about. And I guess if you're kind of a player thumbing through books at the local game store, you're going to see it and be like, huh. And if you're not immediately into their over-the-top version of like Greek mythology, you're probably not going to buy it. Like, if they had made a Dragonlance book during that time and it was a full setting book, I think it would have been a hit.
I think those setting books based on their Magic settings, I mean, in theory that's a no-brainer, but even with Theros, I felt that it wasn't giving me enough information about the setting. Like, there's more information on Magic the Gathering wiki pages about the setting and the monsters and everything than you get in the book. And surely when you buy the book, you should be getting more insights, and the presentation should be more thematic. It was even worse with the Ravnica book. The presentation just didn't give you that feeling of a claustrophobic planet-wide city at all. I didn't even realize that was what the setting was just by looking through the book. I had to read it.
Well, of course,
I was actually looking forward to that Ravnica one too, and I was so disappointed.
Yeah,
I don't hear anyone ever talk about it. Like, I hang out with a fair amount of 5e people, like including people that listen to Critical Role and all this shit, and nobody ever talks about those books. For the most part, they talk about the stuff that's like pre-2017, like for the most part, like
Well,
like the Wodamount book. Is pretty good, but like the Wizards is also a little hypocritical, because if Matt Mercer said, I'm gonna write a new setting, and they're gonna be and they're gonna see dollar signs, and then they're gonna go out of their way to release a new like Critical Role like setting book. I guarantee.
Oh well, of course, because they know that his name is going to sell books.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
My thing is though is I don't think a lot of the newer 5e players, and I hate to make it sound like that, but I don't think many of them deviate from a module very much. I think they pretty much run it as written. And I don't know, I guess they attempt to compensate for whatever the players throw at them that are wrinkles. But
isn't that a lack of creativity? Isn't that as
kinda.
a GM, you want to use it as a guide. You don't want to use it as the Bible, right? You want to use it as a... Go ahead.
So the other thing is, a lot of what they're publishing isn't like single adventure modules. Here's a location, here's the bad guy, here's the setup, here's the payoff, like you used to get, and the little sort of floppy adventures. It tends to be like mini adventure paths. So you're locked into that adventure for quite a lot of sessions, and that's what it's about. You know, there's an overarching story.
The 1 to 10
whereas that kind of modular play of wandering itinerant adventurers, A-teaming it around the Forgotten Realms, that's been forgotten.
Yeah.
It's like, well, and I posted a picture of this, and like people do this stuff all the time. I posted this on the Gilded server, but it's like I saw this one party post their party picture for Curse of Strahd, and it's like the party was like a bunny rabbit, a kobold, some kind of blue guy who I guess was their Firbolg, and like, wait a minute, what are all these weird characters doing in Curse of Strahd? I guess 5e players they harvest whatever they want from all the other books that they own, and that's where they get their, I guess, quote unquote creativity. It doesn't come from within the adventure module itself, like what you were saying, but like it comes from other sources, and then they shoehorn that into the adventure module.
Yeah, ironically, it's less character and more like a persona.
Yeah.
Ironically, this is exactly what they kind of did with Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, and everybody hated it. Rather than sticking to the established canon and trying to follow it, they just said, "Oh, look, here's a cool tidbit. Why don't we just make up a whole story about it, even if it's complete bullshit?" And which is kind of what brings me to our next little story bit here. This is courtesy of our friends over at Bounding into Comics. So yeah, apparently Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, second season will be canonical. So like basically they're gonna do first season didn't really happen.
Okay.
So is this going to be like a dream? Yeah, exactly.
I guess so.
That is
Sauron wakes
awful.
up and Sauron wakes up and Galadriel's in the shower. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Who shot Galadriel?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, man.
Whopper. I would like one of those right now.
I would too. Actually, I like Whoppers.
I could go for a Whopper.
That's what she said.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He's just. Yeah. We feel like this story isn't ours. It's a story we're stewarding that was here before us and was waiting in those books to be on Earth. Well, you kind of right, aren't you? Yeah. Let's see what.
What happened to? We want to make the version of Tolkien that he never did.
They told a similar lie in August at the Television Critic Association's press tour panel. A member of the media described the series as vaguely connected. In response, McKay said, I just want to sort of quibble with the vaguely connected. We don't feel that way. We feel like deep roots of this show are in the books and in Tolkien. And if we didn't feel that way, we'd all be terrified to sit up here. We don't feel vaguely connected. Yeah. We feel deeply, deeply connected to those folks and work every day to be closer connected. That's really how we think about it. Yeah.
No.
Just how we got this. Galadriel.
Tolkien, but for a modern audience.
Tolkien, but for a modern audience, yes. Yeah. Admittedly, as much flack as this character gave, he was actually kind of a cool character, but Sorry,
he was the best elf.
Yeah, he was. He was the best elf.
I still can't get over the walk into the volcanic ash of over 4,000 plus degrees and coming out unscathed scene. If elves were that strong, then what are the rest of the races to the elves?
Exactly. Yeah, that was just dumb.
What was she, Kryptonian?
I guess so.
Yeah. Universe, but they just did it, Because I looked it up when I saw her in a scene walking through the volcanic ash, and I think I saw it on stream here. I was going to go watch it, and then I saw that, and I'm like, yeah, no, if we're just going to throw the laws of physics out the door and say that she's invincible, oh freaking well. And I'm like, yeah, no, I can't do this.
I guess the elves in the first stage were kind of that powerful, but because they were taking on dragons and things, weren't they?
Yeah.
Plot armor is stronger than Mithril.
Yes,
which apparently didn't exist until this.
But didn't Legolas's father from The Hobbit take on the serpents of the north, is what he said, and he even showed that he has scars from that moment. That basically how you see him was kind of an illusion.
Yeah, exactly.
They probably handled it with like awesome elven kung fu. I doubt they were standing there just like getting dragon breath like over them, and they're like, you get your dragon breath can't do shit to me. Like, no, they're probably just using like elven wire fu to like defeat these dragons.
Do you know who I'm related to? Galadriel. She stood in front of a volcanic pyroclast. What can your flame do to me, mealworm?
Oh, you missed the best quote from that article. You almost got to it.
Oh, I did?
Yeah.
What I miss? Go ahead and...
It was like, we feel that any adaptation of Tolkien's Sword of the Rings should reflect what the world actually looks like. It's like, oh, no. No, it shouldn't.
But it's not our world. It's Middle Earth.
Yeah.
It's Middle Earth, which is like supposedly like 200,000 years ago or some shit.
That's why they literally race change everyone except for the Easterlings who they actually show in the show.
Wait a moment.
We don't need to get into it.
Well, how would you know they were Easterlings if they were all diverse?
Yeah, exactly.
Let me find it. Oh yes. We have this classic clip here about Easterlings. Let me just present that.
You came.
And who the fuck is feminine?
They're supposed to be Easterlings who are disciples of Sauron, but apparently they also wield magic.
Really?
Yeah.
So they change the races of everything and everybody else, and they have some Easterlings, and they don't look like Easterlings.
Yeah, they're all white women.
What? Grim is about to have an aneurysm right now.
They drive me to drink!
It's true.
Grim's gonna get pass out on us, man.
I'll drink to that.
But it's true, yeah. Feminem and her two buddies, were about like as pale white women as they possibly could be. It was like even I looked back at some of the Easterlings lore, and I'm kind of like, they were described as swarthy. Kind of like, did that woman look swarthy to you? Did she even have Middle Eastern features or anything that would indicate a swarthy background?
No.
And she couldn't even pass for a Mexican. So.
But then they would quibble about the hair foods, and they're like, well, in the book it says they're like, their skin is like nuts or whatever. It's like the color of nuts. It's like, yeah, it means they're just like tanned farmers. It doesn't mean that, they're Lenny Henry or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
Yeah, who died? He died in the show.
Oh, the show, okay, yeah.
Yeah, he died in the show. So, hey, Calstaff, yeah. I mean, I don't get it. It's like, yeah, that first season was terrible. And I know, because I watched every minute of it. And I regret it. But I did it for you guys, so you wouldn't have to. Just so I can say...
Did you guys see them complain about like Final Fantasy 16 and that that's not diverse enough? Like, yeah, it's like they're not gonna leave shit alone.
Oh no, I was gonna get into that too. Yeah, apparently all the leave Japan alone. Japan's a wonderful place, and you can't use it as a fictional setting and all this other stuff like that. But Final Fantasy comes out, you don't have enough brown people in your video game. You should be ashamed.
Yeah.
I'm just like, what?
We're gonna hold you accountable.
Kotaku. Yeah. Well, Kotaku's still trying to desperately stay relevant. I mean, because I don't think anybody, really clicks on their shit anymore. I don't get it. It's like if you wanted to see what people in Tolkien's particular part of the world in Middle Earth especially look like, this guy is what they look like.
Except cleaner.
Me or them?
Them.
Yeah, because I mean it's supposed to be like a mythical tradition of England, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sorry. It's like
it's like Anglo-Saxon myth.
Anglo-Saxon and Norse and Celtic and Pictish and because Brits and Mongols. But,
all those black Vikings and brown Vikings, all those all the Rus people who came out with their dreadlocks and no.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Kanye Eriksson, the Viking. Yeah.
Kanye Eriksson. His little friend, or actually his buddy, Lil Eric the Red. Lil Eric and his crew be sailing on over there to America. I don't know, man. I don't know what's wrong with people these days. I don't honestly think it's about diversity. I don't honestly think it's about making everybody feel welcome. I think it's just about a bunch of little children screaming about getting their own way about stuff, and they figure they can use this as a beachhead to get in and demand changes that they want. I feel like on some level, racism is monetizable, or
the perception of it becomes marketing. See this, and you'll stick it to the racists.
Mm-hmm.
And
so there's like this
boycott this, and you're standing up for the white race or whatever. It's bollocks on both sides. It's the lack of respect for the craft of storytelling that pisses me off.
So here in the Netherlands, we have like this comic series. I think it's a comic series for children, and it's like a little Indian boy, like a Native American boy, and they want that taken off the shelves because it's offensive to Native Americans. And it's like, we're in the Netherlands. Like, there's maybe one Native American guy lives here, and his name is like Daniel Clockdancer, and like that's it. Like I've never even met a real life Native American like once in my life, and I've been on this earth almost 40 years now. Like, come on, what the fuck are we talking about? Like, why are we as like the Dutch people like worried about the feelings of Native Americans? Because we have like a book here that like nobody else in the world is ever going to see.
Wait, what's KLF?
Tilts at Windmills would be your
yeah, pretty much
your Native American name.
Yeah.
I just don't understand anymore. And it's like apparently it's ongoing, man. We have other stuff that's on the same kind of lines of thought here. Apparently, Blade is being rewritten because the original script ripped off Underworld and was laughably woke in a particularly distasteful way, which is kind of funny because Underworld ripped off Vampire the Masquerade.
Yeah.
My understanding is they had to settle with Mark Reinhagen for an undisclosed amount of money, but it was pretty decent.
So how was it going to be woke? I'm curious.
I don't know. I mean, Black Vampire Hunter.
I do know they were talking about making him a Muslim because the actor is a Muslim, and it's like I don't think actual Muslims would be happy about that. It's like, oh, let's make this half vampire like a Muslim, and like to like hardcore Muslims that would be like demonic. Like, you're not doing them a favor with this. It's not like it's like, oh, finally a Muslim half demon, like.
But yeah, apparently Doomcock found this stuff out. He'd been informed that the script was really bad, and to make it worse, it stole the main plot of Underworld, which in the script Blade had a daughter, because of course they had to have a woman. But for whatever reason, she was not a vampire. They were going to explain it using the mother and the way she was born. She worked with her father, Blade, mostly as intelligence. Eventually, Blade's daughter got bitten and wakes up her vampire powers, and by the end, she's forced to bite Blade, which makes her basically a god with unlimited power.
So everyone out there, if you want to watch a good Blade movie, watch the original Wesley Snipes Blade movie. That opening sequence in the bar is one of the best opening scenes of any movie of all time. That dong dong dong.
Yeah, the club scene
and the blood coming from the ceiling,
mm-hmm.
and the blades come out and the vampires go scurrying, and that is so exhilarating for a Marvel superhero movie.
Yeah,
it's just that's one of the greatest movies of all time. Marvel superhero movies. It's in my top 10, and that includes all this because most of the Disney Marvel movies of the last 10 years are at the bottom 10%. So it's those movies. You've got Blade. You've got some great Spider-Man movies. You've got all the movies up to Civil War. Those are really good superhero movies. So that Blade movie that's coming out next year is we know it's gonna be awful. Come on, let's be realistic.
Mm-hmm.
You missed an important line there too, T-shirt. Like it said, like right after, like that the daughter was gonna like take over. Like Blade basically dies, and the daughter was gonna take over as Blade at the end of the movie.
Oh, like Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
No.
Yes,
a daughter or a female character is going to take over for the legacy of a male character that's been in existence for 50 years. I am shocked. I would have never have thought that would ever happen.
I don't think they need to fuck with Blade. It's got a lot of... well, I guess it's allegorical, isn't it? Which they don't understand if it's not explicit. It's got to be text, no subtext. So the fact that he's a half-breed, that's allegorical for the status of a lot of people in America. The whole one drop of blood thing. The addiction to blood as an allegory for drug addiction, which plagues that community. He's a working-class vampire hunter as opposed to your Van Helsings or whatever else. There's a whole lot of allegorical stuff that's very quote-unquote woke, but you can't just leave it as subtext.
Yeah.
Well, the Blade character as it is a great character. It was a child born out of the 70s. A lot of those dark characters, Moon Knight, Dracula, Werewolf by Night, Blade, Man-Thing, all of those characters from the Marvel Universe. I'm more a DC guy, but I really appreciate my Silver and Bronze Age Marvel characters. There were some really awesome characters that came out of that decade, and I think going back and rewriting it to make it something for the more modern audience is really a disservice to those characters.
Yeah,
I agree. But a lot of the Marvel characters in general are products of their time. Even going all the way back to Captain America, they're all products of their time, and I appreciate that, Marvel has kind of tried to stay current with, giving them updated looks and nuances and things like that to their characters. But
some of them are timeless, like Spider-Man.
Yeah.
The nerdy kid who comes into power and doesn't know what to do with it quite and faces all the normal sort of teenage troubles and worries. That's timeless. I think the Incredible Hulk is probably timeless. And the X-Men. Because there's always some group that's on the outs,
Yeah, and the Hulk is kind of an allegory for inner rage manifested in destruction and things like that.
But you don't have to... Go ahead.
Oh, I just don't get this fetish with placing characters. If I'm a fan of a character, I'm a fan of that character, and not some different character that just wears a similar hat. Like that doesn't work that way. But for some reason, I don't know, that just makes me weird now. I don't know. I'm just a weirdo, I guess, for wanting to see the character that I'm a fan of and not his daughter with the same hat.
Yeah, I mean, it's like if you
you can join the club on that. You can.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say you can
Junkie.
join the club on that one with me because I don't like all the changes that they're making, and there's a lot to be said about that. And it's like, why can't we just have the characters that we know and love from the comics? And when I knew they were doing a remake of Blade, I was very worried. Now I'm gonna watch Blade because I'm such a diehard Blade fan. I want to see just a remake, but that's just because it's Blade. I already know that they kind of messed up a few other things, and I'm probably holding on to false hope, but I'm still gonna do it. Just I'm hoping it's better. But my favorite will always be Wesley Snipes. I'm a big fan of Wesley Snipes. My favorite movies with him is not just Blade, but the one with Sylvester Stallone. What do they call it?
Demolition Man.
Demolition Man, yeah.
Yeah. I love that one. I actually, what's funny is he was good in the Expendables. I just like some of his roles that he had when he was younger.
I mean, yes, I am Matt, but that's a different story.
That's true, Green Apple.
That's what's happened with The Witcher.
Yep.
Exactly.
So
Which is an absolute awesome property, by the way. Those novels are great modern fantasy fiction. And the games, I'm still plodding through Witcher 3 because I'm a completionist. So I'm about 70% done, but I still love the game and the novels, and then that TV show just left a bad taste in my mouth. And I love Henry Cavill, by the way. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I have to agree with that. I'm a big Henry Cavill fan. I can't say I really went through the Witcher games. I've been meaning to, but I actually ended up diving into the Elric comic, which I feel like some of that stuff was derived from Elric into the Witcher, just because it deals with because Elric is basically a pale, white-haired character that just makes me think of the Witcher. But I haven't really dive too much into the comics, but I started to, and so that's where I'm at with that one. But it did get me into those comics, and I also got a Blame T-shirt for that too because he said go check that out. He gave me the name.
It's TJ. TJ, you're dropping Elric, which is I am a huge fan of Elric, and I just hope that they, in this modern world that we live in right now, they don't bring that to screen, because we know that it'll be Elric passing on his sword to this bright young little girl, female character who's going to take on the mantle and become, the gaunt one. It's so hard to see what's going on today in our pop culture. And look, you know what? I understand and I appreciate that we want to bring in a new audience. We want to take these properties into a new decade and have everybody enjoy them as much as we did growing up. But I don't think they really need to trample on the characters that we've grown up with. And I think that they can certainly create new characters. They certainly can field a lot of great characters that are already in the genre, whether it's in Star Wars, D&D, fantasy novels, whatever. There's some really good characters, whether they're different races, different sexes, different creeds, whatever. It doesn't matter. But to change the characters that have been in the zeitgeist for 60, 70, 80 years and make them into this modern audience kind of thing, it does a disservice to those people who created them, to the fans who grew up living with these characters for their entire life. That a lot of these characters have made a difference in the lives of many, many men and women all across the world. And when you change them, you change that spirit of the character that lives in the souls of the people who love these characters. So when you kill Black Panther in the first 5 minutes of the movie with some random unknown virus, and then you give the mantle to his sister, that just destroys the whole love that the people have for this character. And I'm not talking race. I'm not talking religion. I'm talking when you change the inherent nature of a character completely, you lose the fans that love these characters.
Character assassination.
It is cringe. You're right. It's laziness. Create new characters. Do some. It just takes you a few hours in a room with a group of people who've had some life experience that aren't brand new out of a university or a college, who took poetry or, you know, a BA in arts, and it's just you need people with life experience writing these characters that love them, that grew up with them, that know them, and that's how you make a good story. That's what a story starts with, that spark of love that you have for this character when you were 7 years old reading a comic book in 1980. Like, it's just...
One argument they always use is like, well, you know, some 6-year-old girl is gonna see this character and she's finally sees herself represented and blah blah blah. I'm like, who gives a shit about that 6-year-old girl? She's fucking 6. She doesn't know shit. I've been a fan of this character for 30 years. Like, where's my fan service? Like,
well, you don't matter because you're not the demographic anymore. They're trying to get the long-term dollars from the 6-year-old and her 20 some odd years on the planet,
then,
you know.
All that stuff keeps tanking.
Yeah, but
why does a character have to superficially resemble you?
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I do have a couple of things.
Get the money from that?
I do have a couple things
I was just gonna say. Go ahead.
Yeah, I got a couple things I need to pin down in relation with what we're talking about because they're good talking points. You know, we've talked about The Witcher. We've talked about Henry Cavill and his association with it, which also kind of leads to, you know, the Black Adam movie with The Rock. And here's where they're similar, right? For me, watching The Witcher, a lot of it was watching Henry Cavill. I didn't honestly care about what the rest of the story or, you know, the parts with, you know, what's her face and all that sort of stuff. I mean, yeah, nice actress, interesting part of the plot, but most of my time is I want to see Geralt. I want to see Henry Cavill as Geralt. And the Black Adam movie is doing really, really well. The Rock is playing Black Adam, and some people have been complaining, well, The Rock is just playing himself. Which kind of leads me to another interesting question. It's like, how much of the success of some of these shows and franchises is driven by the actor's own cult of personality, personal charisma, and how much of it is that it's just well written? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't think half of Jason Momoa's stuff would be as successful if it wasn't Jason Momoa.
Exactly.
But even he couldn't save that Conan remake, so...
No.
Mind you, he had no beard in that, which I think is important.
Yeah. I think it's a fine line, because, yeah, you can go either way. Because, like, Robert Downey Jr. is pretty much, like, the definitive, like, MCU, like, Iron Man, but those movies, for the most part, were also actually good. So...
Yeah, and I mean, and it could be argued that Robert Downey Jr. was kind of playing himself. I mean, he's a man who knows what addiction is.
Well, there's a scene in the Ultimates comic, which a lot of the early Avengers stuff was based on, where the characters are discussing who would play them in a movie, right? And Robert Downey Jr. was the one that the Ultimates version of Iron Man would have chosen to play himself.
Mm-hmm.
So they may have, and Samuel L. Jackson was mentioned as the Nick Fury. So maybe they used that scene as a guide. I don't know.
The problem I have is all of the ginger characters in Hollywood have all been race swapped into black or women. So I don't know who I would get to play me in my life story, because there's no ginger actors anymore actually playing characters. I guess maybe Lawrence Fishburne.
Well, it's funny because gingers are like a true minority. It's like what 0.1% of gingers on Earth or some shit like that. Like, it's like a really low number. Like,
it is.
I want Gabriel Iglesias to play me.
Scarlett Johansson might make a good Lord Thoth. You just gotta give her the red hair like she had as Black Widow, and add about a foot to her height, and she's good.
Well, yeah, I'm just thinking about like the whole call for diversity, and they call people minorities, and they're only minorities because we in our Caucasian countries, we're overwhelmingly Caucasian. That's just how it is. But meanwhile, on the other side of the world, there's like billions of these motherfuckers sometimes. So like, why are they still called minorities? We're supposed to be like, a global community. So
yeah,
and
when
they have
these
their own
studios
movies. Yeah.
And when these studios say, "Oh, it doesn't reflect the real world," they're talking about America specifically, and coastal America specifically, not anywhere else.
I don't
There's
know,
also
man.
like India, China, Japan, like all these countries, they have their own cinema, like culture. They have their own comics. They have their own books. They have like everything. They have everything that we have. But for some reason, only we are supposed to like reflect like this amazing diversity.
And there's nothing actually wrong with it. It's just it's being done where it's not necessarily appropriate, or it's being done for the sake of it rather than in service to story, and rather than telling the stories of these other communities in Western media, which would be great. There's all kinds of fantastic stories out of Africa and India and all these other places, but instead we're kind of shoehorning them into our stories rather than exploring their stories, and it's just so low effort.
Thus, we always did have diversity already. Like, look at the original Predator. That's from what, like 86, something like that. Like that special forces team. There's a Native American dude. There's like 2 black guys. There's the Hispanic chick like joins. There's like that whole group is like so diverse. Like by modern standards, but for some reason all that stuff is like ignored. The
Well,
A-team,
that
yeah,
that new Wakanda movie's out. How diverse is the population of Wakanda?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, there's one token white guy and one token Mexican guy, and both of them are villains.
So it doesn't reflect the real world today. Then it doesn't reflect modern audiences. Is what you're saying?
No. I think the poster is like 9 black women, and then off to the side is that guy that the one that wanted to be the king too. I can't remember his name.
I'm surprised they made it without the original actor. To be honest, I would have thought they would have kind of sunset it and left it in the background.
Me too. I didn't get emotional in that scene, by the way. Everybody's talking about, it was so emotional about, T'Challa's death, the original Black Panther. Oh, it was so sad. They really did a disservice to the actor, the character, everything. It was awful. It was almost a walkout experience. You see what they did to him off screen, or one line, he died because he had a virus of unknown origin. Are you effing kidding me?
Yeah.
Well, interesting thing. As far as the diversity part of it goes, we did have a friend of the channel, a friend of mine, Mexican Iron Man, who had a rant with Paulie from Latino Slants channel. Paulie's a friend of the channel too, on Midnight's Edge, who another friend of the channel. Oh, we have so many friends in our YouTube community, and I saw this.
Both rants were epic. I love Mike. Mexican Iron Man is spot on. He is. He's a brother from another mother. And that rant, and not only just on Paulie's channel, but on Midnight's Edge channel, was just... And it was so heartfelt and true that that's why everybody loves it. It's trending. It's unbelievable.
Well, that's why I want to play it here. But yeah, also I did think it was kind of a kick in the balls for folks when Martin Freeman's character is... bound and tied up, and the girls come in and break him out of the prison and like, oh look, a colonizer in chains, and I'm just kind of like, wow.
So it's fine, just leave me here and fuck off.
It also doesn't make any sense. They've never been colonized.
It doesn't make sense. Right?
They also spent hundreds, if not thousands, of years minding their own business and ignoring everyone else in Africa who was like suffering. They could have easily helped. And now that now all of a sudden they're like, oh, you evil colonizer! Like, bitch, you could have stopped them like 300 years ago when they first showed up. Shut up.
I don't know Jesse Milestone, actually, just a passerby. And hey, Joe's Atmosphere, nice to see you. Yes, Mexican Iron Man is the man. Let me see. I have to kind of look around for his rant on this. Hang on, yeah. Let's see where it starts. Let me see where it starts. I don't want to...
Let me tell you why.
It's around the 53-minute mark, I think, or...
Is it the 53-minute mark? Okay.
I think... Just a minute. Where are you at now?
Stage. Well, First of all, I'm not even supposed to be online. I'm
There
under
you go.
doctor's orders not to be
Yep.
online at a desk touching a mouse and keyboard because I blew up.
I'm hoping we don't get a copyright claim, but also I want to extend a thank you to Latino Slant for posting this up, and Midnight's Edge for posting this up, because this is good stuff, and I think Mexican Iron Man really kind of explains himself very well about this.
Fracking pissed off and annoyed to come online because I'm literally under doctor's orders not to live stream and to stay away from a desk, keyboard, and mouse. So I
want to get him on the
drove
show
over Lomita, which
so
happens
bad.
to be 5 minutes from my house. Paul, you know.
I could send him a text.
That is
yeah,
the
do it.
biggest set of crap I have seen. Let me tell you things that I would rather have done. I would rather watch Kevin Smith Motu 3 times than
Wow, and we know how much he hated that.
see that again. I would rather watch Shang-Chi 4 times than see that piece of shit.
Look at Paul's expression.
I would rather watch more episodes of Star Trek Discovery than see that piece of crap again. I would rather rewatch episodes of Picard seasons 1 or 2 than that piece of
Man, you know how bad it has to be to rewatch Picard? Oh, Picard killed me. I couldn't even get through season 2.
crap again.
I haven't even started season 2. I can't start it.
Oh, I know what
Don't.
I'd rather do.
Just don't waste your time.
I'd rather watch The Last Jedi 1, 2, 3 times instead of seeing that piece of crap. What I just saw right now is a disservice to men, a disservice to comic book fans, a disservice to fans of cinema, a disservice to Mexicans, and a disservice to Mexican minority relations. And let me tell you this much, my white brothers, this was an insult to you. And maybe that's why I'm most pissed off right now. I am livid. I'm not even livid. You know what? Part of me was pissed off that I just wasted 3 hours of my life because I asked Six and Tom, should I go? And they were right. I needed to get out because I've been hunkered down. So I am glad that Six and Tom told me to go out, and I did not go see this movie. And let me tell you why. I saw this movie for all of you. Anybody listening to my review, if you pay to go and see this movie, then let's go through what you're going to get.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
I don't even need to spoil it just to tell you what you're going to get. Let me tell you who this movie is not made for.
Hey, guys, spoilers coming up. If you really want to go see Wakanda Forever, yeah, stop listening now. Otherwise, please enjoy.
It's not made for white guys, unless you want to see yourself cooked and arrested by your bitch ex-wife.
Oh.
It's not made for Mexicans, at least not if you want to have any pride.
Yeah, I do.
It's not meant for fathers, because there's absolutely no redeeming qualities here from a father's perspective. It sure as hell better not be made for little boys, because if you hope your boy to become a man, this is not the hero movie for you.
Oh, boy.
It sure is not about families, because the basic undercurrent theme of this thing is vengeance. This is not a movie about love. This is not a movie about heroism. This is a poorly written sack of shit movie that went for the 2 hours and 45 minutes I sat in there. This story could have been told in an hour and 4 minutes flat. And even then, probably would have been too long. I'm insulted as a Mexican. And by the way, Paulie, we weren't even Mexican in this thing. We were blue.
Yeah, we were blue.
Anybody? Guess what? If you see this movie, you're already going to see blue people, because my people aren't even brown. They're blue.
Yeah. Apparently the purple herb that gives the Black Panther his powers and all that stuff that grows in Wakanda apparently also somehow managed to take root underwater, and it allowed all these ancient, Mexican Indian people to adapt to living underwater somehow, because I don't know, they don't really want to have mutants in the Marvel Universe yet.
It's magic. Ain't gonna explain shit.
Yeah, I guess so. Although my understanding is Namor, the original character Namor, is like a mutant himself, isn't he?
It's Namor.
Yes, he is.
Atlantean, isn't he? I didn't think he was a mutant.
So he's born from a human male captain who's an American ship captain who's of Scottish descent and an Atlantean princess, pure blood. His mutant situation is when those two bloodlines combined, not only did he have enhanced strength, enhanced abilities, but he also grew wings on his feet, which was a mutant mutation and pointed ears and all that. So yes, Namor is technically a mutant in the mutant universe.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And for some reason, the MCU has never quite, wanted to make that step into mutant territory. And I think it has something to do with Sony.
It did. It had the whole situation with Fox and the rights behind the X-Men movies. And what's happening now is now that they're consolidating those rights from purchasing Fox, that will change in the near future. But this is a whole travesty. I'll let you go back to Mexican Iron Man's rant because I'm going to go on a rant here that's going to last 50 minutes. So I'll stop.
I'll give you some chance to rant, but we definitely need to talk over this just a little bit, though.
Spoiler alert. So anybody that wants to see Avatar, guess what? You don't have to go see Avatar. You can see this one and see all the fucking blue people you want. There's so many pieces of crap in this. How do they talk underwater? Don't know. Don't know. How does a 5'2" little chick beat up a guy that's like easily outweighs her by 2 to 3x? Don't know. Don't know.
Oh, they flat out called him a mutant in this one, Daz Wolfen?
Movie drags. It's got shitty plot point. Oh, I know who it's for.
Did they?
Like bald, black
I missed that.
This movie's for you. If you're a beta-ass bitch loser, probably, and I'm going to say this, I was raised by a single mother, but my single mother told me from an early age that she was going to do her best to make sure that I learned how to grow up to be a man, and she surrounded me with male role models. So, if you're a beta-ass bitch, this movie is probably for you.
I don't think we have anybody who fits that category on this panel, do we?
I was raised by a single father, not a single mother, so...
Oh, but are you also a beta-ass bitch?
I am an alpha male, brother.
There you go. That's what I thought.
I was raised by wolves.
I'm not a beta ass. My ass is the release version with the day one patch.
Oh,
that's the funniest thing I've heard all week.
And Grim wins the internet today. That was going in the clips.
If you're a female that's delusional, that thinks that you can do all kinds of amazing things in your
Thank you, Joe.
strength and power and leadership of a man, this movie's for you. And if you're a cuck-hater ass bitch like Kevin Feige, this movie's for you. Kevin Feige, you know what? Here's some news.
Yeah, he's a
I'm not
Lemurian.
even a Marvel guy. I'm a DC guy. I didn't grow up with the Marvel universe. I grew up with the DC universe. All right? So, but I've been watching your movies all along, plodding along, and yeah, I'm Mexican Iron Man. Why? Because Iron Man and Doctor Strange are probably the only two Marvel characters I've ever really given a shit about.
That's fair. I mean, Doctor Strange is supposed to be the most powerful magician in the Marvel universe, and yet somehow he manages to look like a complete idiot in all the films that he's in. I don't get it.
Frankly, you blew that movie more recently, and you did good with Iron Man, which was my only other.
X-Men is offensive.
But let me tell you, that little Riri bitch,
offensive to transgenders or something.
Iron suit was the biggest crack of
No,
shit
because of
joke
men.
I've ever seen.
X-Men.
My God, let me tell you this.
Oh,
my
X-persons.
9-year-old, let me tell you, Andy Masterson, I commissioned Andy Masterson to build a Mexican Iron Man custom action figure. There's one in my house. There's one at Doomcock's house in Texas, and there's one in California that's owned by Robert Meyer Burnett. There's 3 on the planet.
I wonder
My
if I
kid
get one of
had
those.
made a
Ask him.
video where he's playing with his Mexican Iron Man action figure, and it's way better than that piece of crap that I just saw. Give me a break. Men are insulted
The suit
at every
does look
turn.
horrible.
There is a war on men. There is a war on boys in this country, and I'm sick of it. And maybe I'm a little sensitive because I'm an alpha male and I'm not a beta-ass bitch. Maybe it's because I'm a father. Maybe it's because I spend too much time on too many live streams trying to represent the fans. But let me tell you this. I am sick and tired of my white brothers and sisters made to look like assholes and cucks and bitches.
Yep.
I
Me
probably
too.
can take it as a Latino, but
All you guys on this panel, I know, I'm nearly Mexican on this panel, so all of you white folks on this panel, I'm also tired of you guys being made to look bad by the media. Because I've known too many of you guys, and you're not all bad. So.
Well, the problem is it's all white people doing it.
That's also true. Yeah, there's a guilt element to it, isn't there?
A lot of white guilt. Yeah.
Yeah.
sure as hell can't take it. And I am sick of it. There's one white dude in this movie. One. Just one. And in the end, he's arrested by his fucking ex-wife, who happens to be his boss, and she puts handcuffs on him and walks him out. And by the way, she's a blue-haired Karen. Spoiler fucking alert. Spoiler fucking alert. Spoiler fucking alert. The white guy has a blue-haired Karen of an ex, and she arrested with the handcuffs. What the fuck? Every guy in this movie either loses to someone lesser of him, or is made to be shameful, get down on a knee, or get his ass kicked, or is humiliated. And guess what? Here's a newsflash, because I've been dating smoking out chicks now going on 3 decades. The top line women don't want a piece of shit bait-ass male. They want a man with leadership. They want what's called an alpha male, a high-value man, a man of leadership, a man of strength, a man who makes money and isn't a piece of shit. So this storyline of like strong women and all this. By the way, I gave up, but I think there are men in this movie probably for a grand total of 10 to 20 minutes out of 2 hours and 47 minutes.
What? That's wow.
No, it's true. It's actually true. It's all about women. This whole movie is all about women. 2 hours out of this 2.5 hour movie, every single situation is all women taking charge, being awesome. And it's infuriating because that culture it should be 50-50 all the way. And it's Disney, Marvel, just like Disney, Star Wars. It's all about the estrogen, everybody.
Oh my God. Jesus.
For a superhero film. And no, I'm not sexist. And no, I'm not misogynist. I love women. I know how to respect women. And I know how to treat women well. Like princess and queens when they deserve to be, and ignored when they treat me like shit and deserve to be. If you go spend your money to go see this movie.
God damn, Justin, he put you through seer training when you were 16? Jesus. Your dad was tough.
Know that you're walking into where society is today. And where is that? That is a place where a company like Disney bought a company called Marvel, took over all of your comic books that once inspired you, that once made you want to be a leader. On those tough days where maybe you got beat up by a bully as a kid, you found heroism in those comic books, and you went back to school and fought to live and study and go on another day.
Now, I got my heart going out to you on that one, Mike, man, because I think everybody on this panel can relate to that. I mean, Grim got kicked in the balls every day at school. I got picked on pretty much all the way from 6th grade straight on up through high school. In fact, I hated high school so much that I got on a work program as fast as I could just so I could spend less time in school and more time away from it.
Zax is right. T'Challa is great in Civil War. I just want to say this. As a hockey player growing up, my best buddy that took care of me playing hockey in back in the old days was a great, good friend of mine. My heart goes out to him. He's having a rough time right now, but a black guy. And I was a little guy, but I could put the puck in the net. He was, I hate to say it, but the goon of the team. But he was, you know what? I never got picked on in high school. Love him. And but I can appreciate where Mexican Iron Man is coming from because I was never a big kid in school. But let me tell you, reading Hal Jordan Green Lantern comics, reading Clark Kent as this little geeky reporter who became Superman. I'm more a DC guy as well, but seeing also, this little Canadian hairy guy from the Great North, Wolverine, kick some butt. Like, comic books were an escape. Comic books were a way for me to deal with the tough times of the 70s and 80s, and to go and destroy these characters and make them all cucks and beta males. You know what? When Mike was doing this live, I was watching it live, and let me tell you, my wife had to come in and she had to put her hand on my shoulder and go, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "No, listen to this. Listen to what he's saying. It is true. This is," and it spoke to me. And I never get emotional in live streams. I never get emotional in real life. I am a serene mountain lake my entire life. When Mike was saying this the other night, let me tell you this. I was like, yes, that movie was a travesty. Lady Thoth hated it. I hated it. Women want an alpha male. They want someone to take care of them. But let me tell you something here, too. Men want a woman, an alpha woman, to take care of them too. So it is good. It is the same thing on both sides of the spectrum here. And that's what we're forgetting. We don't want women to dominate. We don't want men to dominate. We want this to be an equal society. Everybody pulls their weight. And this is the opposite of that. This is taking men and making them cuck betas. And you know what, Mike? My hat's off to you, man. I salute you because this was an epic, epic rant.
It is, and it's still going.
Well, America has now been taken over by these woke assholes, and they just spent $200 million, and they're hoping that your dumb beta-ass, cuck-ass bitches are going to go and support their fucking piece of shit narrative.
Me too, Justin.
And if you're one of the reviewers
That's why
that
he's
gave
always
this
been
a
my
high
favorite.
review, fuck you and your sellout, cuck-ass Hollywood bitch. I hope you enjoy your little gift packages. I hope you enjoy your little free passes to see your little opening shows and enjoy your red carpet.
I don't know, Zach.
And to the stars that were in this,
I'm kind of curious to see if Bounding into Comics picks him up for something.
you for making my people or trying to make my people look like shit. And here's the newsflash, and I'm done in 30 seconds, Paul. The name Pinole, which is my indigenous name, Pinole, comes from southern Mexico, comes from the Yucatan Peninsula. And if you look up the history of my name, it's an old Mayan term from Yucatan Peninsula. That means he that protects. So maybe I'm a little bit sensitive because I like to see myself as a guy that likes to protect others. And right now, what I'm doing to all of you is that I am protecting you from seeing this piece of shit. Men, do not take your sons to this. Men, do not take your girlfriends or women to this piece of shit unless you want to sit there and be a beta-ass bitch. Paulie, I'm done.
There we go, man. That was epic.
I don't know, man. I get where the anger and frustration and so on is coming from. And I do think it's dangerous that we've essentially got no positive role models for men. That are left. You know, it's all being undermined, and rightly or wrongly, women feel like it's their turn or whatever. But we weren't alive in the decades when men absolutely dominated everything, and yet we're being punished and held responsible for a history that none of us really had anything to do with.
Good point.
So I think the anger is justifiable and the passion, but I worry that people then cast around for some sort of direction, some sort of purpose, some sort of guide to being a man, and they run into people like Andrew Tate, who are the only ones really talking about it. And I don't feel like there are healthy versions of masculinity out there to be found easily anymore, and that worries me. It's something I would do videos on, but I don't feel like I've got it worked out. So I don't feel that it's something I could lecture people on.
Well, I mean, I don't either. I mean, you know, Thoth is more of an alpha male than I am. But, you know.
What? Yeah, there's more than one way to be like that. Yeah. I used to think of myself very negatively. Unconventionally masculine, but I think I've got into a better place with that now. You know, being intellectual, being artistic, that can be a male trait, and that can be something that's appealing and that you can draw strength from, and that you can attract women with, as well as physical strength or charisma and dominance. You know, there's lots of ways to be a man, just like there's lots of ways to be a woman, I think. But there's just this absence of direction, role models, heroes that are positive, and you're just relentlessly told that men are shit, men are rubbish, men are dogs. Yeah.
You touched on something there. It's definitely like grievance. They're like airing their grievances basically, and they think that two wrongs make a right basically. Okay, men maybe used to be shit to women, so what we should strive for is not to do that anymore and just all be equal and blah blah blah. They're like, you know, what I've been told all my life was the goal, but now it's like, no, it's our turn to be shitty to you. And I always ask these people, okay, so like, how long is that gonna last? Like, is that gonna last like 50 years? And then in 50 years, men get to be shitty to you again because you've been oppressing them for 50 years? Like, how the fuck is like?
Yeah. I don't know. It's been on my mind lately. It's worrying.
Yeah.
Like I've only just recently been getting into TikTok, and Yeah, I'm too old for there, really.
Oh my god!
But a lot of the stuff on there, it keeps feeding me these sort of men's advice clips, and a lot of it is people like Andrew Tate and so on. And I don't want that stuff, but it keeps directing me to it, and I worry about these messages being the ones that people are getting.
Well,
I think we have to worry more about our children and our nephews and nieces and
Yeah.
the next generation that are coming. That this is their role model. So they're going to this movie and they're 8, 9, and 10 years old, and they're saying, "So this is how women should treat men? Is this how men should be? Like, is this the role models we want to have our next generation appreciate?"
Yeah, maybe so. Junkie, I think, is a father amongst us, and I think he's probably having to grapple with that.
Oh, well, my son's smart enough to come to me and say, Dad, why is this like this in this particular scene? And I said, it's not supposed to be, son. I've taught my son 3 things. I said, pay your bills. When you find a woman, treat her like a queen, but make sure that you get treated the same way back. And what comes around goes around.
That's good.
You be good and respect other people, and you're to get that back. And I said, do not limit yourself to stereotypes and labels. I hate labels. I went through my whole life being labeled as a nerd, and a sociopath because people, don't see me with much emotion on my face, But I can say I have gone through my life, and I've stood up for other people. And some of the stream actually with what you guys talked about reminded me of the times I did that for someone. And I'm actually with that somebody today. There was a girl that was being picked on when I was in high school. And it was, I stood up to like 6, 7 guys. I had no fear into doing that. And I tell my son, you stand up for what you believe in. Do not let the world back down. Yes, there's going to be more of them than there are you. But you know what? When you stand up for what you believe in, people see that, and people see how much integrity you do have.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
My big problem with these movies too is that they try to be woke and they try to touch on all these social issues, but they're like so shallow about it. It's like we mentioned earlier with like calling Martin Freeman like a colonizer in change. But like anyone who even thinks about it for like 10 seconds is like, why is this bitch from Wakanda, the country that isolated itself for like thousands of years, why is she calling him a colonizer? For one, they've never been colonized. 2, they never cared about the rest of Africa. So like, it just doesn't make any sense. It's all very shallow.
I know. It's,
they're making rapid changes without fully explaining why they're doing it.
Yeah.
I don't get it. It's almost like a half-assed, like a half-assed kind of form of protestation. It's kind of like armchair protestation. Like, you're complaining about something, but you're not really doing anything about it. And
it's just
it's entirely cynical from the company's point of view.
It is, and because Marvel's in the, they're part of the Disney empire. They're there to make money, and rather than trying to tell you a good story, they're just cashing in on trends, facile trends that are angry and stuff like that to try to get people to come in and see the show. And
it all feels very Mean Girl. Like I get the same energy from when like the Mean Girl in school like would just be like, oh, cool story, nerd, like that kind of shit. Just a very snappy, cynical, little bitchy fucking one-liners.
Yeah. Greg, you've been like super duper quiet, man. Do you have anything on any of this, or are you just waiting your turn, or?
No, just listening in on what everyone's got to say about that.
You have nothing to say?
Too much to
He's
add.
like Black Bolt. He saves his alpha male voice for when it's really needed.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for Greg to come back with a scathing rebuttal.
He's gathering stuff to cancel us with.
I've been taking detailed notes, especially on Victor.
Oh,
I'm fucked.
But no, I wasn't. My high school was fine, and I just what can I say? Everything that I was going to say has already been said.
Oh, I guess that's fair. We do cover kind of a lot of area. Joseph, you said you never understood the outsider narrative because you never thought of yourself as an outsider. Okay, I mean, and that's fair. I was definitely an outsider in my school and my classes and stuff like that. I hung out with the other guys who were basically outcast as well, just because we looked different or acted different, or we had bigger vocabularies, or we were always reading books, or we were always talking about stuff that other people didn't talk about. And
doing well in school, that definitely marks you.
Well, I wouldn't say I really did well in school. A lot of my teachers would say that I didn't apply myself and all this kind of stuff, and so I squeaked by with C's and stuff like that. So I really didn't apply myself. I didn't really try. It wasn't my drive. It wasn't my focus. The only reason I did well in school is because I was being threatened with punishment. To be quite honest, these days.
I was part of a big group of my school days were fairly segregated because I was always in the U.S. They call them advanced placement classes or whatever. They don't have that anymore.
AP classes? Oh yeah, they do.
Oh, they do?
Oh yeah, they have AP classes.
My sister told me they don't have them.
No, they do.
But anyway, yeah. So like everyone I knew and talked to and interacted with, and all of my friends and everybody was like, they were kind of like me. They were white nerds. That's what they were. So we played Dungeons and Dragons and did funny voices, and we were in drama and debate and all the nerdy like extracurricular activities. Like, I don't know, I didn't have an opportunity to get bullied because there were no bullies around me. It was all D&D nerds.
I went to 4 different high schools, so I was pretty much always the new kid. So
oh boy,
fucking sucks ass.
Yeah. I don't know. There's more academia has more outlets for kids these days, I think. So there's and more psychological counseling and that sort of stuff to recognize whenever you have kids who are in trouble for whatever reasons, whether it's like a home life type situation or so maybe they're getting better about taking care of kids. They're still not all the way there because there's still a lot of stuff that isn't being done, and there's still a lot of money that isn't there that needs to be there to help out kids and things. But that's a whole nother story, and I don't want to get into the huge progression of political spectrum problems with education in the States these days. I'm not sure how it is in Britain and all that. I mean, honestly, I'm sure it's pretty rough over there too. It's got to be pretty rough everywhere. I mean, I have a friend who works over in Japan at a school, and he tells me, he says, yeah, they have kids here who, will yell and curse you out and all that stuff too. And I'm just like, in Japan, really? And he says, yeah. And I said, damn. So it's something that's going on everywhere, I guess. Maybe it's because of all the information that kids get these days, and I don't know. But we're not really a political channel. We're not really we're not going to solve the world's problems here on the Week in Geek. We're just here to kind of, give you a couple hours where we talk about stuff and make you feel a little bit better and express our opinions on how we feel about these things and what we feel like we can do about it, or what we can't do about it, or how we see things going, I guess, really. I mean, because otherwise, to say that we have the answers to everything from our little computer screens is just as big of a fallacy as the assholes who, get behind a camera lens and shoot it on a multi-billion-dollar film and then spew it out into the cinemas. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
What is the worst misrepresented superhero that you can think of in a movie? What do you think that would be?
Namor
by far?
That is the worst travesty I've ever seen in a superhero movie, period. That is not Namor. That is Namor.
Basic expert.
Yeah.
I'd say Superman, actually.
Well,
Yeah.
Man of Steel was another travesty, so yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. All the Comicsgate guys that I talk to, they love the Zack Snyder Superman.
No.
Okay.
I don't like it at all.
Yeah. There are moments when it's Superman, and Cavill really comes to the fore when he is Superman. And then there's the other 55% or 95% of the story where, okay, that's not Superman. It's all about hope and making the world a better place. He's the man of tomorrow. He's the man of steel. He's the one who is there to sacrifice his whole life to save the human race. And when he breaks a villain's neck on screen, that is the worst thing that I can ever see ever in a comic book movie. So yeah, you know what, Grim, you're right.
Yeah, I would kind of tend to agree with that too. For me, it's probably the Punisher, just because the Punisher is my favorite character, and I'm always going to have a more critical eye for that character. I mean, yeah, obviously he's a character who has, all kinds of traumas and disorders, and the guy lives with pain to the point where he doesn't take painkillers and stuff like that, despite the fact that, the guy has multiple broken bones and gunshot wounds and knife wounds and all this other stuff, and just basically patches it up with, crazy glue and, fishing wire or whatever, just to,
I'll go on record to say that the Punisher is my least favorite superhero, dark hero character of all time, because there's no way that I would ever appreciate a Marine, even if he's lost his family, doing summary executions of villains and bad guys ever. Because as a law enforcement officer, I appreciate the law being able to deal with these people, but him doing what he does, summary execution on the battlefield kind of thing, yeah, I have a problem with it. But hey, that's a whole other discussion for another stream.
It's something that actually happens, though. It's not like fantasy. Like, people like that actually exist. So
well, the problem is when people take justice into their own hands. You have dead children and dead women and dead people and 40 or 50 people, like what happened down south in the United States. That's what happens when people get vigilante and start shooting off automatic weapons into crowds. So yeah.
Well, he doesn't do that, though.
The Punisher will never be a real kind of superhero in air quotes, because whenever you start unloading firearms into crowds and stuff, people tend to die.
Fire into quotes. What comics have you read?
Well, it's a comic book, right? It's a comic book.
He doesn't indiscriminately fire into quotes. He meticulously hunts down the bad guys. He plans. He plans. He makes sure, like he makes absolutely sure that like innocents aren't in the crossfire or anything. Like
the problem is in real life, if you start unloading an automatic weapon, people are going to die.
If I have laser eyes, people are going to die too.
Yeah, that's true, right?
Yeah.
I hate it when they when these people try to make Batman into the Punisher. Batman is not supposed to be the Punisher.
Oh,
no,
Batman is not the Punisher.
No, he's not. He's not. If anything, the Punisher is there to illustrate the shortcomings of justice, or the ineffectualities of a law enforcement, or the law in itself. The difference is the way between the way Batman and the Punisher handles the shortcomings of the law, because Batman will meticulously try to stay within some boundaries of the law. I mean, yeah, he's a vigilante, but at the same time, he doesn't go out of his way to kill anybody. And despite the fact that he knows every single time they, keep sticking Joker back into Arkham Asylum, and he's going to keep getting out, and he's going to keep hurting people, and he's going to keep doing this, that, and the other, he still keeps sticking him back in there because that's the law.
Well, you also mentioned earlier, T-shirt, like those characters are a product of like the 1970s, and the 1970s was known, especially in New York City, which is the Punisher's home base, was known for its high level crime. How many movies during that era didn't come out about how awful the crime within New York was? The Warriors, Charles Bronson, what's the Death Wish?
Death
all
Wish.
Those movies. That was a whole trope, and the Punisher's basically just one of those tropes that came out at the time.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, violence. Yeah, any fight between superpowered characters in comics, people should be dying left and right as guys fly through buildings and stuff. That was actually one of the things I did like about the Zack Snyder Man of Steel movie, is that the fact that That's probably the most realistic superhero fight I've ever seen in cinema history, because buildings are collapsing, shit's falling, people are in really terrible danger because you got two guys who are so titanically powerful they can knock down buildings and throw buses and shit like that at each other. And it's like, and people are just like collateral damage and stuff like that.
That's what The Boys was all about originally, right?
Uh-huh.
So the original comic is actually very graphic. It's actually a brilliant story that was bastardized by what we've seen on television. The Boys is all about realism. It's all about a guy who can run almost the speed of light across the planet. And sometimes, you know what, your reflexes aren't quite there when you're looking and you're seeing ahead of you, okay, it's all good, it's got to go. Oh my God, somebody just walked in front of me, splat. Like that is the story. It's all about, when we're talking about beings that have the power of gods, sometimes there's collateral damage. I get the realism factor that The Boys brought into it, but I like the superhero version much better. I like the all roses and flowers, and Superman is this, this benevolent being that has all these powers and wants to help everybody, and
the idealized.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, we can go dark and we can go The Boys, or we can stay in our universes like DC, where it's all positive role models that superheroes are.
I don't know about that. I mean, DC Comics don't even come with warning labels for how mature their comics are. But I will say that DC is part of the equation in a lot of this stuff too. And I think Grim would probably jump in on this one when I mention this. I think a lot of this, this modern trend towards dark heroes and more realistic, gritty takes and everything comes from Alan Moore's deconstructionalist Watchmen series.
Yeah. And he kind of regrets that.
Because he kind of demystified the heroes.
He's a mad wizard. Who cares what he thinks?
Hey, I like Alan Moore. Okay,
he's a smart guy.
Yep.
But he's just very bitter. He's been embittered.
Yeah, I agree with what Joseph says there.
Yeah, I think that really changed things in the 80s. So we had Dark Knight Returns, we had The Watchmen, we had Sin City, we had some really, really dark versions of superheroes. The Boys that came later. We got to see the darkness that was so if you're children of the 60s and 70s, you saw Batman 66 was all about to the Batmobile, let's go. Atomic batteries to power, turbines to speed. And it was all about color and bow, pam, slam, and it was a positive kind of view of superheroes. And then things in the 70s got a little darker. We had, Sergeant Rock. We had, we had a lot of darker war kind of comics that came in, and Dracula and Moon Knight, like we talked about earlier. And then in the 80s, it was a different kind of era of comics where we started to get things like The Watchmen, Dark Knight Returns, and so you took Batman and made him darker. You made him not necessarily pick up a gun, but be more martial in his law, a vigilante, an actual vigilante. And so, yeah, things really have changed over the decades, and what we're seeing in 2022 is, a more woman perspective, a female perspective. That's not a bad thing. I want to see more female perspectives, but not at the expense of the man and the male perspective.
I think the funny thing is the old Judge Dredd comics, the 2300 AD comics, a lot of people love Judge Dredd, but at the same time, kind of like the dude is like a pure fascist, pushing fascist law and all that sort of stuff. I mean, yeah, he's killing criminals and everything else, but he's like, it's kind of tongue in cheeky because it's kind of like, you're not really supposed to root for this guy, but you kind of do.
That's how it started, but they've kind of humanized him slightly over the years. Like, he has his doubts.
Well, that's that's the whole reason. That's what 40K is based on, and it's the same thing with 40K. It's like obviously very fascist and like has all that iconography and everything, which is why 4chan people like it. But it's like it's not supposed to be taken super seriously. Like it's supposed to be kind of a
Well, yeah, but those
thing.
those
Yeah.
4chan people, for the most part, are not the ones that take it seriously. The ones that take it seriously are the ones that want to change it because it's like fascist. It's like
Yeah,
you're
like they don't even
that's like a
understand
joke.
what it is. It's pretty dumb.
And just a passerby, you're right. The 80s were dark. Just a passerby. The 80s were very dark.
But yeah, I remember a Judge Dredd comic where he shoots a guy's leg off for like walking on the grass. So
Yeah.
if you're worried about the Punisher, like fucking, you should definitely be worried about Judge Dredd.
Yeah, there's a great episode in the Planetary series of comics where Elijah Snow and Chiquita Wagner and the drummer go to England for the funeral of the analog of John Constantine, basically, and the funeral's attended by all these analogs of all the weird 1980s heroes and weird British heroes from the time. It's it's quite eye-opening and has one of the best passages on Thatcher I've ever read.
Now I gotta check that out.
I've never read like a lot of mainstream comics, like, you know, I've always been like into not weird, but like alternatives. I like Hellboy and Cerebus and The Goon.
Oh, wow.
Ninja Turtles and, you know, Sandman, like the stuff that's like not necessarily as mainstream as, well, I guess those things are mainstream now, but not Spider-Man and Batman necessarily.
I love your choices. I love your choices. Those are good. Those are some good call-outs, man. They're great comics.
Well,
especially Cerebus, man. I have a soft spot for Cerebus.
Cerebus was great. There's one that nobody ever mentions that I really enjoyed, and that's Transmetropolitan.
Oh my god!
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Yep.
I used to like Savage Dragon, but that guy's an asshole. Like the writer, so.
Yeah. I don't like Eric Larson. I used to like Savage Dragon back when I was younger, but I've slowly. Yeah.
I would often read just weird like European comics.
There's something for the panel and maybe in the chat. So when all of those artists broke off from the big two, DC and Marvel, they all came together and created Image Comics in the 80s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite comic from the Image brand, not including Spawn, because that became a mainstream independent comic.
Yeah.
But it was Wildcats. I love me some, and I love Wetworks too, but Wildcats was my favorite. Grifter, Spartan, all those guys. So does everybody here who is a comics fan that love the 80s comics, do you guys have a favorite?
From Image?
Image took a while to come over here. I remember the first time we read any of their comics was when a friend had visited his family in Canada and came back with a fat stack of Wildcats comics. So, but I can't. I haven't read enough of them to have a particular favorite.
I'm sure there's one in there that I liked, but I just don't know if they're Image or not. I never really paid attention to who released what.
The problem with Image Comics that I had was that they released so many comics and they had so many characters and they had so many team comics that honestly I can't remember, one character from another because they all had the same personality and they all had so many similar drawings. I mean, Rob Liefeld was just vomiting characters out as fast as he possibly could.
True.
Well,
and they all sucked.
As cheesy as it is, and it's not the best, I've always got to go with Spawn. Spawn is a badass. I love Spawn.
Yeah. There is Stormwatch. Let's see. Savage Dragon.
Mm-hmm.
Wildcats. Spawn, of course.
I kind of liked Gen 13.
Oh, Gen 13. Interesting.
Because it was a small team. They were kind of recognizable, and the stories felt a little bit more closer to something I could imagine. Wetworks is like, wow, cyborged out, super soldier crazy people, and Wildcats was just like, okay, let's take all these different characters and just stick them all together, and it doesn't really make any sense.
That was the creativity of the 80s.
Yeah.
It's a bygone decade that's now, almost 40 years. It is 40 years ago now.
Yeah, I honestly at that time I wasn't really reading. I mean, I collected all the Image comics because I was speculating back at the time and thought, oh, these will be worth some money. But
they published the Max. I loved the Max cartoon. So
it was good.
There you go, the Max. Good choice.
The Max was fun.
Though actually, it's Mr. Gone that I like.
Well, now
the comic.
more...
Oh, I was gonna say the comic book I really was always trying to find copies of and was always just really eager to get was Cry for Dawn, which was illustrated by Joseph Michael Linsner, and that was like a off-brand kind of horror sex / comic, and that I loved that so much. That was my favorite.
But there was only a handful of issues, wasn't there?
Yeah, there wasn't that many.
Yeah.
But I still have them tucked away somewhere.
The art was cool.
Yeah, the art was the best.
Oh, Fathom. Who brought that up? Joe's Atmosphere. Oh, I love Fathom.
Yeah, Fathom was interesting. London Night Studios. Yeah, I remember London Night Studios.
But technically, the Authority and Planetary were part of the Wildstorm universe, weren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they were. Yeah. I love the Authority. That was awesome.
Yeah, the Authority's great. Jenny Sparks is great.
I used to read a comic called Druna. Look that up. It's very,
Oh,
it's very tame.
I remember
It's
Druna.
very tame.
I remember Druna. Yeah, with the perfectly formed female. Yeah,
Yes.
that was neat stuff. That was really good artwork. I loved heavy metal magazines back then. I haven't seen them lately, so I don't know how bad they've gotten. But
the reason I bring this up is because we've been so dark and negative in recent history with all the pop culture that's coming out today. So it's really nice to go back into the past and remember the stuff we love. And we still love it, right? And I cracked open a couple of my long boxes in recent history because I was rebagging and boarding a lot of my comics. And I started going through a lot of the Image stuff. And I was like, I found myself flipping through old Wildcats. And Grim, you mentioned Planetary. That was in the list too. And I was just flipping through the comics going, I really love that decade of great stories. Yeah, some of them were pretty dark, but the art was fun. The comics were fun. The characters were all new, unique. And that was what the fun of that decade really was. And nowadays, it's all about rehashing old stories and making them into this whole illusion of for modern audiences. And I think we've really missed the point here where uniqueness and creativity is what's going to push your theme into the future. These movies that are rehashing old characters and rewriting them for a modern audience is just not going to work. You need to come up with really cool ideas. The 80s were full of that.
yes, I used to love Dark Horse comic books back when they were coming out with stuff like Barbed Wire. But my favorite was X.
Dark.
Yeah, I love that dude because it's like if you get two X, an X on your face, you're dead. Otherwise, one mark, is a warning, and the next one is death. And yes, Joseph, I've heard of Gore Shriek. I remember that.
Yep.
T-shirt rehashed as hoodie. Yeah. Yeah, it's like that's what's fun about all those old comics is a lot of them were stupid. I mean, just straight up, they were. I mean, you can't really tell one Wildcat story from a Wetwork story from, any of that stuff because it all kind of runs together. It's always the same thing. It's like, one crazy team of really interesting characters versus another crazy team of interesting characters, and they just beat the shit out of each other for no reason. And that was fun though.
Now I feel like comics in the post-2000 era are so intricately tied to TV shows and movies that it's like comics are being created with the intention to be signed to Netflix now. It's like, that's not to remain as a comic. Who gives a shit about the comic? It's kind of like the old 80s toy thing. Like they made toys and then like to try and make a cartoon out of the toys.
Yeah.
It's like almost the same thing. Like The Walking Dead. Next on AMC's The Walking Dead mid-season finale. It's like
I always remember that time and think about Crystar. And
Crystar, I had some of those.
G.I. Joe and a lot of the G.I. Joe Transformers stuff too. Was the toys were so huge that they made comics out of them, and the comics were actually pretty good, right?
Yeah, man, fucking G.I. Joe comics were good. Actually, I will say this: the G.I. Joe comics really elevated the little action figures to something much greater than what they were. Larry Hama. And all the writing teams behind that, they made such really cool characters, and they actually kind of made it believable in a weird way that it was fun. It was enjoyable. And I have friends who worked on some of those comics. My friend Glenn, his cousin worked on some of that stuff. You ever heard of Herb Trimpe?
Yep.
Yeah, Herb Trimpe worked on that stuff. And he has covers for some of those things.
Wow.
Mike Barron
I'd love to get a
worked on some
couple
of
of
that stuff.
I'd love to get a couple of the artwork on the original covers for a lot of that stuff, because especially the TF and the GI Joe stuff, because those are some really good covers. And I still have my battle tank from GI Joe that, of course, the batteries the batteries kind of imploded inside the tank because it was sitting in a box for 10 years. But that, and I still have my Jetfire.
I have a Jetfire.
Yeah, right up in my display case. And the funny thing is, I used to take it to the cottage all the time, so the salt water get in all the joints. But still, I can't transform them anymore. But it's nostalgia, right? Those are great toys from the 80s.
Yeah, we had so many cool things that came out in the 80s and the 90s. And I mean, yeah, primarily it was to sell toys and stuff like that. But I mean, it was fun. It was just neat stuff. I mean, and interesting stories grew out of those toys by creative men. I mean, the Inhumanoids as a figure line was not so great, but the cartoons were great. And some of the best cartoons didn't get figure lines. Like, how come they never came out with Thundar the Barbarian figure lines? That would have been just perfect.
I can't believe you dropped Thundar the Barbarian, man. That's pretty good.
I will always drop Thundar any chance I get because I love that show. I bought it like twice because I love that show so much.
I need to watch that again. I wonder if I can download it somewhere because I need to watch it again.
Get the Blu-rays, man. Go get the Bluerays. They're up on Amazon. Yeah,
I'll do that.
There's a Blu-ray of Thundar that seems like a waste of HD.
Yeah, right.
It is, but it isn't. They got the DVDs too, but come on now. I like Blu-ray.
You know what? I will say this to everybody out there who isn't a child of the 80s, who grew up on Saturday morning cartoons. Let me tell you, that was the best time, man. You get up, the Herculoids. Oh, man.
I love the Herculoids.
Wow. And so that and... well, there was Captain Caveman and the Scooby-Doo and stuff. That's more 70s into the 80s, but still,
that stuff was more silly. But the 80s actually had some more serious cartoons. I mean, even the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon was pretty serious and fun.
I like that. Robotech is my all-time favorite. That and Star Blazers and Robotech.
Yeah,
I was more 80s into the 90s, so we had stuff like Dino Riders, Mask.
I remember those.
Mask.
Air Raiders.
Mr. Like, that shit. That Cops one was awesome. That cartoon.
Centurions. Cops was good.
Silverhawks.
Silverhawks, yes.
Yeah.
Fighting crime in a future
Bucky
time.
O'Hare.
Yes.
I love that. That would be a great TTRPG setting, to be honest.
So Cadillacs and dinosaurs.
Cadillacs and dinosaurs.
Couldn't ask for anything else.
The Bionic 6, stuff like that.
The Bionic 6, I remember that was criminally underused. Okay, this brings me to a really interesting. I want to close out on this because it's still kind of positive. But early on in the show, we were talking about these Dragonlance settings and all this other stuff, right?
Right.
This is a problem I've been trying to wrestle with. But something like Dragonlance. Or running a campaign based on those properties, like a storybook property, always feels hard to me because it's hard in the same way as like if you want to run a Star Wars campaign or you want to run any other property that's like got such a heavy duty fan base fiction, but like running in Lord of the Rings,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how difficult really is it? I mean, because to me it seems like it's hard because everybody wants to be those characters and stuff like that. Nobody wants to be like second fiddle,
Well, that's
in a
a lot of
Dragonlance thing.
That's actually part of the criticism of the original Dragonlance modules, is because you played as those characters on that adventure, and people thought that sucked. It's like, I guess it was popular, but it's like it was so railroady. Look at me. I'm the most railroady guy there is. I'll tell my players, you're doing this. And they're like, yes, sir. And like, no, I don't do that.
Yeah.
But like the original Dragonlance, like if you weren't following that storyline in the book, you might as well, there was nothing else for you to do. And so those are often looked at as failures in a kind of way.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, one of the earliest examples is like Stormbringer from Chaosium, right? Obviously, anybody who's read Elric, if you wanted to start role playing in Elric's universe and all that, it's like, well, I want to be Elric. I want to have, the Stormbringer and Moonblade or Mornblade and all that stuff. And it's kind of like, well, yeah, but you're not that character. You can't be that character. That character is like ultra powerful, super whatever. You just have to be like Joe Schmo, who, is not even equal to Moonglum.
But the Eternal Champion exists in many forms, in many universes, from Jerry Cornelius to...
Jerry Cornelius.
My problem always is that I feel I have to do the source material justice. So if I'm running a module and there's like all these NPCs that are also like in 12 twist books, then I have to like, try to like do them justice when I roleplay them. They can't just be some dude. And sometimes you want the NPC to just be some fucking dude. And I don't want to spend like 3 hours like meticulously recreating this guy's personality from the books,
And that's exactly part of the reason why I created the Chronicles of Iris. Not to self-plug too much, I apologize for that. But it's like, all my players and friends, like they love Lord of the Rings, Tolkien, Dragonlance, Narnia, that type of stuff. But all those problems that we're discussing about trying to create a campaign in those settings, in those intellectual properties. Instead, what I did was create my own setting, but it has the same feel, it has the same atmosphere. So like the player, I'm not burdened with having to live up to that legacy of Tolkien. Instead, my players, this is like the Lord of the Rings. And so they feel like they're part of something fresh, even though it is derivative. Intentionally it's derivative. But if you create a campaign in Iris, like you can have the same type of feel as you get with Lord of the Rings, but you're not tied down with all that stuff.
Yeah. I always felt that was one of the crippling shortcomings of Street Fighter, the role-playing game. As much as big of a fan as I was of the video games and all that, it's kind of like when you build a character, they're not going to be able to take on Ryu or Akuma or any of those guys because those characters are way more powerful. But ostensibly, that's what you're supposed to be playing the game to do, is to be that level of power eventually and being able to do those things. And it's just kind of like, but you really can't, not without lots and lots of time and stuff. And then, of course, if you're actually playing that character and you do something like, okay, well, I'm going to play Ryu and, I'm going to do this, and, and then somebody else is like, well, yeah, but Ryu wouldn't do that. That's kind of why I hate, any kind of gaming like that is based on IPs, because they got the G.I. Joe TTRPG coming out, or that just came out. They got the Transformers TTRPG that came out, the Power Rangers TTRPG that came out. They got the Escape from New York TTRPG that's funding now, and all these other things, all based on all these properties and licenses and everything else. And I'm just kind of like, they're really cool ideas and they're really neat, but how are you going to run this stuff and do it justice? I mean, because you're either going to have to let the players play those iconic characters and have to deal with the constant breaking of immersion, where like, well, yeah, but John Rambo wouldn't do that.
Well, there are some intellectual properties where it works, like in Alien, the Alien RPG, the universe of Alien, especially if you look at the expanded universe in the books and comics, can weather that type of thing. Like, you don't have to play as Ripley.
Yeah.
The only problem I have with the Alien RPG, even though the setting is great, everything about it is really slick, it's awesome, but the players, my players, or any player will have seen all the Alien movies. Okay, so I don't know a nerd alive that hasn't at least seen Aliens. So how do you have kind of a horror-based game if the players already know? The players know about the alien, like everything about it, the life cycle, the face hugger. So it's like there are no surprises to be had, So it's like they can role play a character that doesn't know, but they know. So it's like you're trying to.
Yeah, it's difficult.
You have to create the terror for the player. You're not creating the horror for the character. So it's a really tough thing to do when you have an IP where the players already know everything about it.
Well, I
Hit
also
them with
know
a
what
balloon
orcs
monster
do,
from Darkstar instead.
Yeah.
I think that's the problem with anything. I also know what orcs do. I know what goblins do. I know what bugbears do. I know what owlbears do. So.
Well, those things aren't as particularly supposed to be terrifying as the alien. Like, how horrific is the alien back in 1979? Holy shit!
It's as much as I hate to plug the guy's channel. There was another YouTuber who actually mentioned why vampires are stupid in TTRPGs, because there's no element to a vampire that the player himself does not already know. Oh, look, there's people who are feeling weak and anemic and they have 2 puncture marks on their neck and all that. It's a fucking vampire, It's just, certain things are certain commodities are so well known that they don't have any element of mystery to them. They're
That's why sometimes you have to just embrace a different take, like Victor did with his Modern Adventurer's Guide to Guns and Gear. Like he's got fantasy characters in a modern setting. It's got a lot of world building there. So yeah, there are orcs and things like that, but it's a totally different take that you don't have to live up to. You don't have to fulfill those expectations, basically.
Yeah. You could run the Bright role-playing game, basically, based on the show.
Yeah, pretty much. I was going to say, though, about Alien, my kind of solution to that problem was going to be, if I ever run the Alien RPG, I was going to do, a campaign, and basically run it, almost like a traveler campaign, where there's just, a bunch of space truckers doing space trucker stuff, and then maybe months down the line, all of a sudden they get a job, and it involves oh shit, we're transporting these weird eggs. What's going on? So you kind of ease them into it. They're doing more mundane stuff for maybe months at a time, and then eventually the aliens show up.
When I would run zombie games, you always had to kind of get down to that brass tacks of does everybody know about zombies, or is it a new thing, or So I used to feed into that. People would in the game I'd say the Romero movies exist and people know about them, etc., but of course nobody really believes that those things could actually start happening. But then when they do, it's oh well, the rules, don't get bit. But let me push let's give Victor a push before we leave here, because we're already over time a little bit, and I know Grim has got to turn into a pumpkin pretty soon.
Yeah,
I'm 20 euros from 50% funded. So.
Yep, you're 20 euros from 50% funded.
Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, if you guys are interested in this out in the audience, I threw the link in the chat. But yeah, this is Victor's Modern Adventurer's Guide to Guns and Gears for 5e, and it's really cool. I've already pledged for the hardcover version of it because I'm a snob that way, but you can kind of enter it as you like. I mean, for $4 you can just basically get your name in the book, or if you want to actually get the PDF, it's only 11, or a soft cover is 26. And then he's got this new deal for group softcover PODs, so you can get 3 copies of it, so that you can actually use it at your table. And for $57, that's really good. Or if you're like me, get snotty and pay $94 for 3. I may do
people
that.
kept suggesting that for retailers and like people just want to get something as a group, basically. So.
Yeah, I wish more companies would offer stuff like that, because frequently it's the GM or whoever's buying the books who incurs the brunt of the costs.
Yeah.
So yeah, having more options like that.
Or all of the costs.
Or all of the cost, yes.
Including pizza.
Including
pizza. I just went over.
With extra pineapple.
So whoever just did, thanks.
There you go. Hey,
somebody did the hardcover, looks like 40. So yeah, I'm at 50%. Thanks.
Nice.
Whoever did that. I haven't looked at the name yet, so I won't call you out, obviously, but yeah.
Okay. I'm on the site right now. I'm gonna pledge here. Just a sec.
All right. Well, does anybody have anything to plug before we leave, or we just plugged you, Victor? So.
Yeah.
Whitechester's done. Needs a couple more edits to the DTP file, and no doubt I'll have missed a whole bunch of spelling errors and things anyway. But yeah, so PDF will go out next week.
Ooh, nice.
Oh, and speaking of which, I caught your Warlock review today.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, now that you've actually had a chance to look at it and stuff like that, what do you actually think of it? I mean, other than what you said,
I gave it 8 out of 10. So.
8 out of 10.
Wow.
Yeah, it knows what it is, and it fulfills that function very nicely. I mean, it's not an old school RPG, but it's trying to act like one, I guess, and it does represent the character of the old fighting fantasy books and Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay back in the early days quite well, I think. So yeah, it's not huge or earth-shaking or groundbreaking, but for what it is, it's good, and it's very consistent in its presentation. So yeah. It's worth a punt if you want to experience some of that old school stuff from the UK, the kind of character and feel of things, without spending out thousands of pounds on eBay.
Nice.
Here's a curiosity I have. Obviously, yeah, I agree with you that they missed their opportunity in not being able to kind of reverse engineer it to play, like the Sorcery series or the Fighting Fantasy series.
Yeah.
But just as a curiosity, let's say I wanted to run, like Warhammer: The Enemy Within. How much rejiggering would I have to do to make Warlock work for that?
Not a great deal. I mean, you divide the percentages by 5 to give you your bonuses. And on the GM side, you can always fudge things a bit, so that's relatively easy to do. Figuring out how much stamina, how much hit points things should have, that'd be the biggest problem, I think.
So that's interesting, 'cause I like the idea that you could use it instead of Warhammer, because it seems easier to pick up and learn.
Yeah. I mean, I like percentage systems because everyone knows what a percentage chance is, and it's easily graspable for most people. But some people are intimidated by large numbers, in which case this is a better bet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I took a look at it and immediately thought, oh, Grimm's got to see this. So I don't know if you'd actually use it to run a game or not. But
now Whitechester's done, I might start a project to try and play every game that I own at least once, and do streams of it. So
I'm with you on that.
Yeah,
and
so keep an eye out. I've just got to figure out when my wife will let me. So.
and not to put you on the spot. Not to put you on the spot, but we were discussing that whole thing about going through OSR products and kind of cribbing rules for a rule book.
Yes, we can do that, but I need a break.
I understand.
Yes, some of my friends are actually working on a project to do a modern clone of first edition. They're calling it the Egg Project, which I'm kind of looking forward to that, because a lot of the retro clones are like BX. There's not really like Osric, I guess, is first E, but it adds a lot of stuff. They want to basically do a one-on-one retro clone of it, but like, you know, with modern, like more clarified writing. So yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess they can get away with it. I don't know. I mean, this is just my opinion, but to me, I'm less interested in like OSE or Osric or any of that stuff, because it's like, okay, you're basically just whole cloth copying the original stuff and rewriting it in such a way as to where it's, you know, the same thing.
Well,
I prefer systems that actually take that old stuff and find interesting new ways to use it or twist it or modify it and add in new rules. And that's why I like Hyperborea, because they added all these subclasses. They did things differently and interestingly. It's like, yeah, it still feels like the old game, but there's enough new extra things that make it kind of go, ooh, you know. Castles and Crusades made the Siege engine, which I think was awesome. And it fits that really well, you know. Yeah. So for me, it's not just, you know, let's just play old AD&D, because I've already done that. I want to see where you can take the system, what you can do with it, how you can twist it, and how you can make it your own. Because ultimately, I think every GM is going to end up with homebrew rules that they like for every game that they play anyway. So you might as well see what other people did with it and see if you like something better.
Yeah.
That's just me.
But yeah, a rewritten first edition is going to be awesome. I mean, I'm sure that'll be a huge success, because there's a big demand for stuff like that right now. But
yeah, to me, it's like translating the original like Necronomicon from Arabic to Greek. It just
And yes, John Harrison, I do have Shadow of the Demon Lord. No, I haven't had a chance to play it yet, but man, I've got a big stack of Demon Lord books. I would like to play it at some point.
You and me both.
Speaking of Castles and Crusades, I do want to plug myself real briefly. I'm working on my Wilderkind splat book that's going to have 12 new races for CNC and 5th edition. So that'll be cool.
I want to help you on that any way I can. So let me know.
I had to help him the other day because he couldn't find how Dragon Breath worked.
Yeah, I'm looking through the monster manual and I'm flipping at dragons and I'm like, it doesn't say what the cone is or how many targets. Oh, but it's at the beginning of the section. It's like, I think it should be in each individual section, but you know, that's just me.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny you would mention that. One of my old writers that I talked to, I've told him, I said, you know, we're still writing stuff for 3rd edition and Pathfinder. Why is that? How come we haven't moved on to D&D 5th edition? And his honest answer is, well, they don't explain how they come up with the numbers for some of this stuff, or how they come up with the, you know, monsters and all this kind of stuff. I can't figure out how they create them all. It's not well explained or anything or written.
Yeah. There's like 3 different versions of how they say they do it, and none of them add up.
Yeah. So
I think at the end of the day, they just make shit up.
I kind of think so too.
Yeah.
Which, okay, we did that in OSR, you know, AD&D 1st edition and all that stuff too, because I mean, there was no codified way to do it. It's just kind of like, okay, well, that sounds good. This sounds good. Let's give them this. Let's give them this. And nobody bitched about it. There was no fairness factor. So I don't know. Maybe that's just how we should handle it. But, you know, it's like I was having to help Greg, you know, figure out a mechanic the other day, and I'm like, well, we're not dealing with 3.5, so we don't have to get so crafty with our rule sets. We can just kind of just say, hey, it just works like this.
Yeah, I'm not used to that at all. In 5e, It must be codified. In 5e, I have an easier time because there's a rule for everything. If I want, you know.
I'm mostly pulling stuff out of my ass when I'm running 5e.
Yeah.
At this point.
All right. Well, you always play as a lady in games, awesome one? Well, okay. Nope, that's not a big deal. I mean, I run my fair share of female characters too, just because it's fun, especially when it's a video game.
I'm a lady.
A lady.
There's some GMs, like some grognards, that won't like allow males to play females and vice versa, which I kind of think is a bit silly, but whatever.
Well, I mean, why not? I mean, you're not supposed to be playing yourself is the main thing.
Well, their argument's like they don't want to just hear a deep male voice, and it's like, yeah, I'm like a cute 5 foot perky elf girl.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, hi, my name is Willa. I am a 18 charisma female halfling.
Yeah.
It just kind of doesn't work, does it?
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you very much, everybody, for hanging out with us on the Week in Geek. We did get a little philosophizing kind of a few times today, but I mean, there is a lot to think about. There's a lot to be positive about in our fandom. There's a lot to be negative about in our fandom. It's really easy to sink really, really far into the negativity. So it's good to have some refreshing positivity here and there where you can get it, because there ain't much of it. And a lot of it is still kind of tied to the old stuff that we used to like, unfortunately. But those days will come back, I think. So, can I say,
Yep.
But thanks for hanging out with us, and we will see you guys next week, all right? Take care, everyone. Bye.
On behalf of the staff of the Independent California Motel, I wish you all sweet dreams.
of life.
Wake the fuck up, samurai. We have a city to burn.